today is specifically about a healing that needs to take place. Not a physical healing per se, but kind of a healing that needs to take place for not only one individual, but an entire family, all the way to from this family to our church body as well. And I'm going to invite Kiara up. And Kiara, are you nervous? Are you okay? You can have a seat. This is Kiara Stringer, aka awesome worship talent chick.
AKA Stephen Owen's granddaughter.
That's right, yeah.
That's all I've known as well.
Real quick, tell us how you came here to Connection, and then we'll dive into the story.
So I first started coming to Connection with my Nana and Papa and my dad probably when I was 6th, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere in there, middle school.
And let's clarify, Nana and Papa.
Nana, Ellen, Steve.
Yeah, Ellen and Steve, all right. Just so everybody knows. Got a little bit of a ring here, man.
So I started coming with them, and it was kind of off and on. We would come on the weekends, if we would get up in time, that kind of thing. And then I kind of took a break for a while. I didn't, it was really off and on. I would come every now and then by myself. But I really started coming routinely and really diving into this church about 2 years ago after I graduated college. And a big part of that was because of Miss Tyler Anderson.
Who's pretty great.
She's pretty great.
That's really cool. Okay, so let's hit the rewind button then, and kind of go back to your childhood, and then I'm just gonna let you kind of take it from there, okay?
I was born here in Grand Junction. I was raised Catholic till about 4th grade, I would say. I went to Holy Family. And then up until that point was around the time that my parents got divorced. And so there wasn't a lot of church going on my mom's side. I would go every once in a while with my grandma. I would just have an urge to go. And on my dad's side, like I had mentioned before, my Nana and Papa would urge us to come, and with my dad we would come every off and on. So I would explain my religious background as I knew there was a Savior, I knew about salvation and all of that, but we didn't really practice it. I would say we're pretty lenient in practicing. We would kind of, sweep our dirt under the rug, slap a Bible verse on it, and kind of go about life, act like it was okay, and give the perception to everybody else that we were really strong believers. So pretty shortly after my parents got divorced, I think we decided, I'm really bad about timeline, I was 8 or 10, somewhere in there.
We need to get your sister up here.
Brooklyn knows the timeline
Brooklyn
really
knows
well.
everything.
8? I was 8, is that good? From 10, okay, we'll go with 10. So I was 10 when my parents got divorced, and kind of backing up into that, as far as I could remember, which is only a couple of years, once I got older and kind of realized what was going on, my dad was an alcoholic, and he was always coming home late. We wouldn't know where he was. My mom and dad would argue all the time, and would get loud. And I remember this one day, and I don't think I ever told you this, Mom, but I was laying in bed, and I just sat there and I started praying, and I was like, God, just make them get divorced. I'm tired of this, and it's terrible. And I think back on it all the time, and as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, I made them get a divorce because I prayed for it. But once they got a divorce, my dad was off and on with drinking, and it had gotten a lot worse. He lived by himself. No, he lived with my Nana and Papa, and then would move out on his own. And I just remember, I was always a daddy's girl, and I loved him, even through all of this. And I think I was kind of blinded to a lot of stuff that happened because I loved him so much. But from there on out, our childhood was really give and take. It was a very balanced childhood. You know, we would go over on the weekends and it would kind of be a guessing game on, is Dad gonna have a couple of drinks, or is he gonna be blackout drunk and you're gonna have to sit there and see him on the ground and, you know, not know what to do about it because you're a kid. And so, of course, we would never tell my mom about all the things that would happen on the weekend. And of course, she had an idea of things that would happen, but she was pretty much in the dark because we would protect him and we were scared about being taken away from him, and so we wouldn't share all these things that had happened. And it was multiple occurrences that we would be in the car with him when he was drunk, and it's honestly amazing that we made it home all of those times. And I really, you know, it's only by God's grace that we did, because I remember each time pretty thoroughly and how we were swerving in and out and missing cars by inches and running into things. And so as the time went on, it got worse and worse. And there was a point, my mom started to get an idea about it, and there was one day we went golfing with my dad's best friend, and he had been drunk at the golf course, and I was aggravated. I was at the point, the age, I was probably about 12 at that time. I knew when he was drunk, I understood, and so I was aggravated and unhappy, and I knew, you know, and my brother and sister didn't understand. They were, you know, too young, and so they're like, why are you getting all aggravated, Kiara? Why are you so upset? And, you know, at that age, as we were leaving that golf course, I knew that we shouldn't get into the car with him. Like, I knew we shouldn't have, but I didn't have the voice to. I felt like I wasn't in a place to stand up and say, no, I'm not getting in the car with you. And so I looked to my dad's friend, and I was just praying that he was going to say, you know, I'll drive you guys home. You don't need to take the kids, and he didn't. And shortly after he let us go, he called my mom and let him know what had happened. And we made it home. And when we got there, he was so drunk that he didn't even put his car in park. It was in neutral. He was we were in a slanted driveway, and he was kind of just hanging onto the car with his foot steadying it. So I busted out of the car and ran inside, angry, and, you know, my brother and sister trickle in, and I did what I always did. I made them dinner, you know, I comforted them, I put a movie on, I made sure that they were okay, and, you know, they were scared, obviously, we were all scared. And a couple of hours had gone by, and I went out, and all of a sudden, you know, I don't know what drove me to go out and check on him, but I went out, and as soon as I walked out, his car just backed up into the road, and then this van went and drove up and parked right in front of him because he was blocking the road, and I freaked out. I'm like, well, great, now the cops are going to get called, something's going to happen, you know, I was freaking out, and I see this guy walk out, and I kind of recognize him, and then I see my grandma walk out of the van, and then my mom walk out of the van, and then I really freak out. I'm like, great, now they know. And so from that night on, we weren't allowed to see my dad. He was in and out of rehab. He went to a couple here in town, and I actually attended a couple of them, and they would, you know, sit you in a circle and how you explain your feelings and express them and tell them how you feel, how they make you feel, that kind of thing. But he never really got to where he needed to be here in town. They would keep him, and they were pretty lenient, so they would just let him go, and then he'd fall back into it. So he was lucky enough to go to a rehab program out in California, and I think he was there for almost a year, right? And that one, I mean, that is what turned him a 360. You know, he came back. He stayed sober for 4 years. You know, he really started stepping it up as a dad and got a job. And of course, you know, we only got to see him every other weekend, or started it like once a month, every other weekend. And slowly he regained his trust with my mom and showed her that he was being responsible and really turned his life around. That's when we started coming to church more. And at that point, when I was about 14 and a half, 15, he met his second wife, which was Megan Beauregard. Some of you might know her. She used to attend here. And she really kind of sparked church life in him as well. And we were coming more often. I even tried joining the worship team as a baby, and I was scared, so it didn't work out. But they got married in September, oh gosh, Brooklyn. Let's see, it would have been like 2012. Yeah, 2012. And, you know, they're doing great. I've never, you know, I didn't get to see his relationship with my mom, but, you know, he was really happy. They were really happy together, and seemingly with that, you know, we weren't there behind the scenes. You know, I still to this day don't know, but they seemed happy. Like, they genuinely loved each other, and they were goofy, and, you know, I was excited because I was like, you know, we had a rough start, but my life's going to get started here, and I'm going to be able to have an opportunity to see what a normal family dynamic is. Thank you. And then, so I'm not sure when it all started up back again, but it was like flip the switch. It was a 360. And he started drinking again, and it was pretty much like he had never stopped. It was like the last 4 years had just been wiped out and never had happened, and he just picked right up where he left off. And I think it got a lot worse. He got a couple DUIs. I mean, he would go ride his bike to try to get liquor. He fell in a ditch once. He didn't know where he was. And he started getting, I wouldn't say violent, but he would get angrier and angrier to the point where Megan wasn't comfortable, and she would call the cops on him, and it was just spiraling out of control. And one night he had a stroke. So this was in 2013. I was 16 years old. Something about to turn 16, and he had a stroke and had an aneurysm in his brain. So he lost a lot of his brain function, and it was really hard to go see him like that. You know, we laughed about it at the time because he had to wear a helmet and he wasn't stable. And I always joke and say that he was like a 5-year-old in a 40-year-old's body because he was acting goofy, and he was having to learn how to ride again. He couldn't see out of one of his eyes. You know, he couldn't remember when he ate. It was like he had to be locked up behind a screen at night because he would keep trying to escape and go wander to the hospital. So it was really hard to see him like that. And from there on out, he just kept depleting. It got to the point where he had to move in with my mom and papa. You know, like I mentioned, he wouldn't remember when he fed himself. You know, he wouldn't know where he was. He couldn't see. He mentally wasn't all there like he was before. He was a very intelligent man, and it was hard to see him like that. And so he just started getting deeper and deeper into a depression. He felt like he had no worth, and he felt like he was a hassle on all of us. And in the meantime, me and my siblings hadn't been able to see him since these incidents. We would see him off and on, but the last month leading up to the big episode, we weren't allowed to talk to him. My mom had mentioned, I think it was possibly court-ordered, but it was for a better good, obviously. He would call and leave us messages. He was drunk and apologized, and so we would have to sit there and listen to him. Basically at his breaking point, and it broke my heart because I didn't have any words to say, and you know, I couldn't. It was scaring me. And so a month went by, and on a Friday morning after school, we got back. It was a normal day, what had been normal for those days. And my mom pulled us all in together in the dining room, and she said, "Sit down, I'm going to tell you something." And I don't know what it was, but before she even said anything, I knew it was about Dad. And she told us that he was in the hospital and that he wasn't going to make it. And at that time, I was confused. What happened? Like, I know he had a stroke, but he was fine. Like, what happened? Why is he in the hospital? And they kind of tried to pre-warn us that he had tried taking his own life. So when we got there, let me explain it a little bit. He overdosed on Tylenol, and my papa is the one that found him in the bathroom. We don't know how long after it happened. So he was in the hospital for a couple days, and they held off on telling us. They weren't sure if he was going to make it or if he wasn't, so they were kind of holding off before telling us to just kind of save us the heartbreak if they needed to. But of course, at that point, I was angry. I was so angry. And when we got there and saw him, he was pretty much in complete shutdown. He was yellow and swollen, his eyes. He couldn't open his eyes. And they had him restrained to the bed because he would just try reaching out and he couldn't talk. And so when we went in there, of course I was trying to be strong. My brother and sister couldn't say anything and didn't want to say anything. I mean, it's hard sitting here and talking to this person that you knew, but they can't respond to you. And shortly after that, after we had left that night, he passed away. Yeah. And so after that, it was really weird. Like, our family didn't really talk about it all that much, and we still don't talk about it all that much. I think it's because we don't know how to, we don't know the words to say. But I can tell you from my standpoint, I was angry for a long time. I had a lot of resentment. Because how could you keep me from him, and how were you selfish enough to not let me go talk to him when he could talk? Because I had said some mean things to him too, and I wasn't able to personally say, I apologize and talk to him, but there's still that block there that wonders how much he understood and how much he processed. And so a lot of my healing process was anger. I never really had a close relationship with my mom. We do now, but I was angry with her. I was angry before with her, and I was really angry with her. We'd get in fights all the time. Our family dynamic isn't the same as it's still not the same to this day than it was when that happened. And that and all of these episodes, it started laying over and us not going and talking about it. We keep it in, and it started affecting my personal life, behind the scenes in my relationships with guys. Obviously people are going to label me with daddy issues, and I joke about it too. But any relationship with friends, guys, anybody, I would have this mentality of, I don't want you to leave me, I want you to stay, and I'm going to do anything to make you happy and to please you. And so obviously with friendship, that, relating, I was always there for them. It was a one-way, a lot of my relationships are one-sided. And once I graduated high school and got into college, that's when I really, really kind of fell apart. And I think I hit my low point. Of course, my mom doesn't know a lot about this, but Tyler was there to help me through a lot of it. But, I got into relationships that weren't healthy, and I gave them anything they wanted to please them, keep them to stay, and they still wouldn't, so it would break me down. I was a hot mess. It was like a cycle. Why aren't these people pleased with me? Why do they keep leaving me? And I got obsessive about it, and I couldn't handle being alone. I was broken, and I constantly needed attention, and I constantly needed somebody there to love me. And I would jump into relationship after relationship after relationship, and all of them falling to the same demise and wondering what was going on. And like I said, luckily I had Tyler. She helped me through a lot of it. And at that point in my last year of college, I had met Deshante, and I got his permission to talk about him, don't worry. And we kind of jumped into our relationship pretty fast as well. And like all the other ones, we started it way wrong. But there was something that was like, it was pulling on me. And I was telling Troy I was so heavy. Like no matter how many activities I got in to distract myself, no matter how much I told myself I was happy that my life was moving forward, that I was growing in faith, I would try getting into the Bible, we tried having our little Bible studies. I was just constantly pulled down, and it was like a block, and no matter how hard I tried, the words I read went out, my ears, and I never processed anything, and eventually it started, burning a little hole inside of me, and you start getting really guilty, and not this year's camp, but last year's camp was my final breaking point, I think. When I was up there was a lot of guilt on my part. I was reliving the last 4 years of my rebellion and the things that I had done that I hated myself for, that made me feel dirty and ugly and unlovable. And so I really just meditated on that all week. And Christina had this night where each of the leaders got to wash each other's feet. And that was awesome. Guess who? Tyler washed my feet and vice versa. And, I just broke down, and everything inside me, it was opening up. And we used that night as one of the salvation nights. And, I was sitting there, and God's pulling on me, and he's like, Kiara, you need to tell somebody, get this off your shoulders. Like, it's going to just keep pulling you down. And I was sitting there, and I was like, the only person I could ever, I think, actually open up to and not feel judged by her, the only person that I know well enough is Mitzi. And I opened my eyes, and there's Mitzi just standing right in front of me smiling, and I was like, Mitzi, you gotta come here right now. And I confessed everything to her, and got baptized the following day, and I cannot tell you the relief when I came up from that water and how light I felt. I've never felt that much peace in my life before. It's as if everything in the past, it was worth it, Instead of being a burden, it became, it was the build-up to my reward. And from there on out, it's only been a short year and a half, but I changed my way of relationships. I rededicated myself. I washed myself pure, and a lot of that was because I knew personally I wanted to get involved in the youth, and I didn't want to be somebody who was a hypocrite, who was telling them to live one way and live the other. And there's this lesson that I was reading earlier this week, actually, and it was describing the flow of faith and the steps it takes. And, I've always been one that's like, why does it take me so long? All these people around me are growing in faith every day, and they're so strong in faith, and I feel like I'm just somewhere in the middle, and I've never been, like, way high. I've definitely been way low, but, why have I never gotten to that? And in this lesson, it gave a little visual, a little metaphor, and it stated, if you plant a seed in a clear cup and you plant it close enough to the surface, you can watch the roots grow. And when they grow, they go down before they go up. And it just magnifies the healing process and your growth in faith, that you got to go down and you have to go through all those struggles, because he uses those struggles to show you your strength, and he uses your struggles to spread his word. And once you realize that, and you stop living for the flesh, you stop going down, you start living to please the flesh, you stop living to please everyone around you, to have this amazing life, and putting up these walls and giving people the perception that you have an amazing life, and you start living to please the Spirit, like you had said this morning. I just can't tell you how freeing it is, and I'm excited to finally be on the upward. And I can't wait till I break through the surface and it's been an amazing, it's nice now that I can say it's been an amazing life, even through everything I've been through. And my biggest hopes with that is that I can be an example for my family, and that we can start doing this together, because I don't think we have. And it breaks my heart to see them all still going through the things and the motions. But I also have to be patient and realize that they're working on their own beautiful creation as well.
Isn't the Lord just amazing? Golly. As you were talking, can I have some permission, Deshante, for just to kind of go in a direction real quick? It's amazing how the Lord will just always be changing our hearts and changing our thought process. As He's working in us and really breaking the patterns of our lives, breaking the chains of our lives, breaking the things that really hold us down or keep us in some sort of bad state, whether it's a grieving process, and we just stay there and and then finally when you have that moment when you're just like, I can't do this on my own anymore, something needs to change, and the Lord will finally start to lift you out of those patterns. And something that I noticed as you were telling your story and as we were talking before, I'm going to make a disclaimer real quick that Deshante and Kiara actually aren't together anymore. And it has been just a total God thing, and how these two have handled this situation. And they have the same group of friends. They're still hanging out. They're sitting in the same row, type of thing. And it's just really cool, because here you just shared with us that you're in always falling into these relationships, right? But this time it was different because of the journey that God took you through, and Deshante was in that mix. And it's so here you and Deshante are together, and now the Lord's working on you, and instead of you feeling like you have to please Deshante, there was starting to be a change, correct? There started to be a change in your relationship. And the Lord is actually removing that from you. And in the Lord's way, in His mysterious way, with what you shared with me, Kiara was becoming very numb in her relationship with Deshante. And probably if you had some time to really sit down and talk about it and think about it and talk to someone else, that you'd probably start to figure it out, that the Lord was starting to remove, let's say, that codependency from you in that way. And with it, and probably to guard your heart, was the emotions and things like that. And so the change is just incredible, because here Kiara is in these relationships and doing anything she can to please these relationships, and then God starts to change. And Kiara is the one that stepped forward and said, something needs to change with this relationship, Deshante. And the Lord started to work in her life to the point where you were the one that said, this needs to stop. That is just amazing how the Lord just works in our hearts like that. It's just, I love being able to see, because it's a small thing sometimes, right? It's a small little process sometimes, how the Lord is working through these. And I want to share the maturity of these two in how they really focused on Jesus rather than their own struggles, because DeShante will tell you it wasn't easy because he was in this relationship for the long haul, right? He was, yes. And but even then, DeShante started to change his perspective towards the Lord, to the point where we invited Katie and Mark Johnson, and out in the lobby we prayed away. We broke the soul tie between the two of them, and just amazing how all of this healing process is going on from your immediate relationships, right in the thick of things, and now how it's really starting to spread. And the Lord is just, His grace is just in it, just over and over and over and over and over. Man, that's so awesome. Hey Ben, will you come up and where is Ben? There he is. Will you just jump on the keys real quick, and I'm going to give you a moment if there's anything else that you want to share, and then Terry, I'm going to ask you to come and pray over Kiara, and I'm actually going to invite the whole clan, the whole Stringer family up, and we are just going to pray for a continuation of healing in this. That as you can see, this is very real. This is happening right here, right now, and that's what this is all about. That's what this should be. So is there anything else? Like what direction? Where are you headed now? Where's the Lord?
I'm going to keep growing up. My roots are going to keep going towards the surface. And I think the biggest thing in all of this is just to amplify the beauty of our brokenness, and just the hope for those of you out there that are needing it, that there's going to be a point in your life, and I hope it's sooner than later. I really wish mine was sooner than later, that there's going to be a point where you can look back and you can be thankful, and you can look at all of it as beauty rather than anger and mishap and mistakes, and you can see it as your motivation and your building blocks.
That's just amazing. If any of you are comfortable, I'm going to invite you guys to come up and get some, and just let our church family pray over you. Stringer family, if you guys can come sit right up here. If you're not comfortable, that's totally fine. I'm not going to make you do this, but just come and receive. Come and receive what the Lord has for you guys. You can go ahead and give this microphone to Terry. Worship team, would you please come up? And church, if you would just lift your hands up and just lift them up in prayer and acknowledge that the Lord is in the house. There's going to be some healing going on.
Precious Father, I just thank you so much for Kiara. Thank you for her willingness to tell her story, Father. It's a story of you working through her. Thank you that she's a willing vessel now to share. I just thank you. Father, I just thank you that you are our great healer, that you are merciful, that you love us, that you're taking these ashes and you're making beauty in her life. I thank you for her roots. I thank you for the beautiful flower that she already is, Lord. I thank you for healing her family, for working through grief, Lord. We don't understand it. We don't understand it, but Jesus even knew grief. He cried when Lazarus died, knowing he was going to bring him back to life, Lord. And I just thank you that there is hope in the midst of the grief. I thank you that Kiara's going to see her daddy again one day because he knew you. I thank you, Lord, that there is hope in you. I thank you for healing. I thank you for DeShante, Father. I thank you that you're doing work in his life as well. I thank you for this church and for our willingness to be able to share our hurts. Thank you that you bring great healing, Father. You are our awesome God. We worship you, we praise you, and thank you for this morning. In Jesus' precious, holy name.